Welcome into Texas High School Hysteria. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Ric Renner. Thanks so much for tuning in as we celebrate the programs, the coaches, the players, the best stories in the state of Texas. No state does it better than the Lone Star State when it comes to high school sports, and we are all over it. Make sure you go onto YouTube and subscribe to the Ric Renner Texas High School Hysteria channel, and you won't miss an episode because we do it each and every week. We never take a vacation. That's how we do it. Well, the Super Bowl is featuring two great Texas high school quarterbacks going at it toe-to-toe, and somebody's O must go. Last week, we talked to Patrick Mahomes' high school coach at White House, Adam Cook. He had some interesting things to say. This week, how about Jalen Hurts' coach, who happens to be his dad? Enjoy. Joining me now, a man who's affectionately known as Big Hurts, the head football coach of the district champion Channelview Falcons, the one and only Jalen Hurts' dad. How are you, Coach? How you doing?
Fine, and you, sir. Thank you for having me.
What's all the attention been like, with your son going to the Super Bowl? I know you're getting all these interview requests from Entertainment Tonight, Extra, Good Morning America, Randy McElvoy at KPRC. Seems like everybody wants a piece of you right now, huh?
No, it's been interesting. But we're making it through it.
What's it like having a son that you love so much and a guy that you've coached really your whole life, playing in the biggest stage in the Super Bowl? What's that like?
Oh, it's an amazing thing. I'm just so happy for him to be able to, achieve a lifelong dream and, just the opportunity to play, first college football, then the NFL. I mean, is already, over the top and a great blessing. But, to be able to have a team going to the Super Bowl and, it's just, humbling experience.
We know Jalen is quite the gym rat, and covering him over the years, I heard this great story about when he was a 5-year-old and you had the choice of daycare or GYMCare, which was going to school with you and hanging out in the gym. He decided to go to GYMCare. Tell me about those days and how that kind of flourished for him.
Well, no, it was just a lot cheaper to take him and his brother with me. You didn't have a problem bringing two little boys to the field house all day. If they'd have been a daughter, I don't know how they dealt with it. But, having your oldest two be boys, it was easier just to say, pack a lunch, and you get up, you pack their lunch and just go to work. So
now, would they step in on drills and stuff with your team?
As they got older, they tried, and, and as they got older, they would do them. So that was always funny. They just, it was great. Got a little workout in and, they enjoyed it. So it was a good deal.
With his work ethic, it almost seems like, it has roots in being around the gym and being comfortable with being in there.
Yeah, no, he's very diligent in what he does, and he's very determined. And so when he sets his mind to something, that's what he's going to work on, and, it's paying off for him.
It really is quite remarkable. And, you think about what he was able to do when he got to the high school level. I mean, he was only a sophomore. He's squatting 500 pounds. We saw it at the University of Oklahoma where he was able to get up 600 pounds. You don't see quarterbacks doing that very often, do you?
No, that was, and that deal was just basically he gave up basketball and baseball. And he really wasn't a basketball player, so it didn't bother me. He played baseball since he was like 4. So that one I took a little harder. And so I had to get up on Saturdays to go to powerlifting meet. So I'm like, well, if I got to get up, you got to get up. I wasn't expecting anything. I just wanted him to go compete, and he just kind of took off with it. And he got, became pretty good at it.
His demeanor is really remarkable. In all the years I've been able to cover him since high school, I've always been amazed how cool he is. He might be the coolest cat I've ever met in my life. He's just so determined. He's just so laid back, and he has kind of a will and a mission to be a winner and just a calmness about him. Where does he get that from?
That's just, he's taking it to another level. It's a deal where, in high school, you tell them, you tell all your players, hey, you got a game, you can't get too high, can't get too low. Because, you're going to have some good things happen. You're going to have some bad things, some adversity, some bad things happen. The key to all of it is always how you deal with it. And he just kind of internalized that, and that's just kind of how he goes.
Is he a great example for the kids that you're coaching now?
Yes, and yes, it should be. I'll say he's unique because of how focused and locked in he is. He's a different cat. And I told Coach Saban that when he went to Alabama. I told Coach Riley when he went to Oklahoma. I'm like, he's a different cat. And they were like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, it's just hard to explain. And then, after a little while there, they were like, okay, we understand. He's gonna be that first one there. He's gonna be that last one to leave. He's gonna do everything he's supposed to do, you know. And so he's just, determined to try to be the best that he can be.
I know great coaches like Lincoln Riley and Nick Saban, they always enjoy recruiting kids that have that kind of work ethic and that determination, but they love the fact that they're coaches' kids because it's almost like a second coach out there, isn't it?
That's what they say, and it's when you're a coach's kid, you understand time, you understand commitment. Chances are you've heard, that kids heard the stories of the good and the bad. And so, it allows them to internalize it. And, that kid sees his father raise other kids basically. And, you get on them and you get on your kids as well. And so it's, positively and negatively, or for good things and bad things, let's say. And so it's just something that just comes with it. And you just have generally a different understanding.
It was so spectacular watching him in his high school days at Channelview. I know we were handing out Bill Ford Tough Player of the Week honors left and right for him. He probably could have won it every single week the way he was running that offense for you. But when you look back to that, he was a highly recruited four-star athlete, probably should have been a five-star, but everybody wanted him. There was so much attention. When you look back, what are the most memorable moments that you can remember from those days when he was running your offense?
Each year he got better with it. He got more, sophomore year was one thing. Junior year, he handled it much better. Senior year, he knew what I was thinking when he get to play. So that part worked well, just, how long he ran it. So it was a great deal. And, dealing with the recruiting part, it was just basically you hope and pray that all your players, but definitely, okay, he was playing well. Hope that he got the opportunity to go to college and get an education, first and foremost. And play football. And, anything that's happened after that, he definitely did on his own.
You've been around the game for a long time. Was there ever a moment in high school where you're like, boy, he just gets it? I think he is, has separated himself from everybody else, in the greater Houston area.
I don't know about that part. I know that going into his junior year, first game, I realized he was a different player. He was a different guy out there. He was a lot different, and he played that way, for the next 2 years for us.
When you watch him on that NFL field, I know you don't talk to him every day, but you guys are super tight, unbelievable bond. When you see him go through emotions in games, do you know what he's thinking in those situations?
Pretty much. Pretty much.
What are you thinking when you see that? You're like, you should have checked down or should have done this or should have done that.
I try to leave those parts out of it. I let those guys that get paid a lot more money than me coach them.
You've had those conversations, though, with him, those, the father-son conversations, because you're probably going to hear about the tough things and the difficult things to get through. What are those conversations like, and what is your advice to him?
I mean, the conversation is just that of a, father-son type deal. It's a deal. If I talk to him too much, that means something's going on. When I don't hear from him, everything's going well. And so I like it when I really don't hear from him. But, it's a deal where, you have to be there and, he's at that point in life where he's always been very mature. I'll say we dropped a 17-year-old boy off at Alabama, and he, you go back a little while later, he's a grown man just from everything that entailed being there and playing that position. And so he's very mature beyond his years. He understands how to, dissect things, and he writes things down. And so if he has a question, it's a direct question. He understands what it is, or if he needs to talk, he calls and we talk, and we try to get through it and we keep it moving.
Yeah, you think back to those Alabama days, he gets in there and he's the first true freshman starting a quarterback for Nick Saban ever. And the first one that's been able to do it at a college football powerhouse like the Crimson Tide in over 30 years. I mean, that's on the biggest stage, went to 2 national championships, and then, of course, went over to Oklahoma and was a runner-up for the Heisman Trophy, which was a lot of fun for your family to see. And to be able to do that at 2 different schools, as you look at his journey, what has really impressed you the most about what he was able to accomplish in college?
Outside of getting his degree in 3 years, that was the big thing. That was very, very, a proud moment and, something he really wanted done. And so he was able to achieve that. And the other part is just the growth, just watching him mature and go through things and, come out stronger from the things that he went through.
Yeah. And, obviously you come in, you're not thinking you're going to start as a true freshman quarterback at Alabama. And then, you're running into other guys that are superstar quarterbacks, but he was able to always kind of weather all that stuff and had that belief in himself that he was going to be the number 1 quarterback. You can't teach that. You just find a way to make that happen. And he was able to do that. How do you think he did that?
That's just him. I mean, he has the internal drive. No one, I didn't expect him to start as a freshman. But then once it started going, I kind of thought that, okay, well, he should play from what I'm seeing, but, I'm not making that decision. And then, you see it a little more and you're like, okay, well, how is he not going to play? And then, fortunately, he played and he went through and had a, pretty good freshman year.
Really fun to watch. And, you look at it too, you get to the NFL level and you're going to have quarterback battles there as well. As you guys approach draft day, I'm sure you're thinking, okay, maybe this team will take us, maybe that team. Where was Philadelphia in all that? Because they had the established quarterback, Carson Wentz, who was the number 2 pick overall, who just had that new contract, $128 million. You're probably thinking Philly is the last place that Jalen's ever going to end up at that point.
You think about those things and it lets you know that, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And so it's like, okay, you don't know anything, but no, we weren't thinking Philly. We thought they had him and we did, definitely not in the second round. If it was a later round deal, you could see it, but second round pick, we didn't quite understand it, but, went in and things, went the way they went. And now here we are.
Yeah, and you look at Philadelphia, I mean, it's a rough town. Being a New Yorker and a guy that went to college in upstate New York, I mean, I saw them boo Santa Claus at a game. It can be a rough town, but Jalen's been able to win over those Philadelphia fans. How do you think he was able to do that?
I mean, my understanding, Philly's a hardworking town, blue collar city, a gritty community, and they get it, they get after it. And I think those are things that, he values in himself as a hardworking person. And he's not afraid to work and not afraid to get his hands dirty. So, kind of like a match made in heaven. We just didn't know it was coming.
Yeah, and if he wins this title, man, he's never going to pay for a meal in Pennsylvania, is he?
It'll be good for
him. Does he kind of laugh in the face of pressure? Because it never seems like pressure phases him.
I mean, and it goes back to just him understanding and staying, level, even keeled. When you get there, then, and if it's a pressure situation, the old expression, never let them see you sweat. You don't want them to know if you're rattled or if it's anything. So, I think having the same, as they say, poker face all the time, helps him. And now it's him, so it can't change. So it's like, oh, well.
Maybe it's in that signature hot sauce, the Louisiana hot sauce that he enjoys so much.
Hey, we've always kept that around the house. So when that deal came out, that was a great deal, and it wasn't, it's a small company, but it meant something to him. That's like, something from back home. So he definitely wanted to be a part of that.
Speaking of something from back home, how in the world does he get live crawfish in Philadelphia?
They ship it there. He's got a place in Louisiana that sends it. And, the first day he was doing it, he bought some down there and he was like, okay, He said, well, I got something coming. I'm having a ball. I'm like, well, where you getting it from? He said, they're shipping it in. I'm like, from where? He said, from Louisiana. I said, they're going to be live? He said, yes. I said, okay, well, send me a picture when you get them. I want to see this. And he sent the picture, and they were. So I was like, okay, well, here we go. So
The rest is history.
yes.
That's great. Well, you look at the Philadelphia situation, and you talked about how it really is a match made in heaven. I think about Brian Johnson, who knew Jalen since he was, a little tiny boy, 4 years old, came up through Channelview as well. And, a guy that tried to recruit Jalen to go to college somewhere, and here they are together in Philadelphia. Do you think that has a big factor in all of this as far as how seamless this has been for Jalen to be a MVP kind of candidate quarterback at such a young age?
For me, I think it's a big part. I coached Brian when I was at Baytown Lee with Coach Olin. And, I actually played against Brian's dad in high school. He was at Crosby and I was at Channelview. So, I met Brian when he was at Lee. And then when Brian went on and he got into coaching, then Brian recruited him. But, Brian knew my sons when they were running around the field house. It's just a little kid. So when you come back and you see that little kid has grown up some, you're like, okay. Then you see now you're back recruiting this little kid. That's just, fun. It makes you just laugh. But the big thing for me is when they hired Brian, I knew that there was someone there on the new staff that knew who he was, knew how he was raised, but knew that kid that they saw that was stoic and, the way people see him with his demeanor, knew that was really him, that it wasn't a, facade or anything. That's how he is. So it kind of bridged the gap a little easier and smoother because when they're like, okay, well, he's not easy to talk to. And he's like, well, you got to, trust is something you earn. And so it's a two-way deal. So, that was a blessing to have someone that you've known for so long in your life to be able to be there in that position. So I know I felt better when they made that hire.
Kind of crazy thinking these two are going to be together trying to win a Super Bowl in Arizona, huh?
Yeah, that part there is, I'm so happy for them, the coaches, the players, the organization for the great job they did, with the choices and picks that they made. So it's a good deal. Hopefully they can get it done.
A lot of people talk about Jalen and they say he's kind of an old soul. He listens to Anita Baker after games. I know she enjoys that. She tweets back. Did he get that from you? The whole Anita Baker thing, or the smoothness, and where did he get that from?
Yeah, I was more, I'm more of his Al Green fetish, and Mays is kind of like, those old songs you play on Saturday, mornings outside, afternoons washing the car or whatever. And, he just kind of got attached to him and he just brought it with him to, to college, and, the rest is history.
What do you think about his singing of Fly, Eagles, Fly after the Eagles won the NFC Championship game?
I told him don't give up his day job.
I think the fans enjoy that a little bit.
He definitely got my voice.
Well, I think it's funny when you go to Twitter and I look at your Twitter handle and it talks about quarterback developer. How do you become a quarterback whisperer?
The beautiful part about that is I don't have social media. That's my son. That's my son's doing. He's the one. That's him. I don't have social media. We just happen to have first. We have the same first and last name. So it's not me. That's the quarterback developer that's played quarterback and that's a quarterback coach.
But you get a little credit for being the quarterback whisperer. I mean, you've had some nice offenses going on there at Channelview.
I was a quarterback. I get credit for being the quarterback dad. But yeah, no, we've done a good job with it. And, my coaches have done it. My quarterback coach has been here with me a long time, Byron Henderson. He coached both of my sons, and he did a great job with him and all of our quarterbacks. And so, we look forward to continue. And, we've had some pretty good runs at it if we got somebody that can spin it.
Now, Jalen talks about how you like to call him J-Bug. Where did that come from?
Somewhere they just picked it up. Somebody had a hat, they bought him a hat. So it's like, okay, so we just kind of tag it sometimes.
With this Super Bowl matchup, it's so much fun because we got two great Texas high school quarterbacks going at it. Patrick Mahomes, who went to White House High School there in East Texas, and of course, Jalen from Channelview. What does it say about the Lone Star State and the talent that comes out of here to have two quarterbacks going at it on the highest stage?
Oh, it speaks volume for Texas high school football and the coaches, and the things that, the coaches that we have here in Texas. We have a great coaches association, of course, but it speaks volume for the talent that we produce. Because you look at that and you look at the ones that, the other Texas quarterbacks that are just in the NFL still, and the starters that are there and the ones that, have gone on and retired. And so, it really, really speaks volume to, you know, how we do football in Texas.
Yeah, and you look at the two quarterbacks. I mean, this is history. Where this is the first time we've ever seen two African American quarterbacks go at it in the Super Bowl. And I think about the common denominator between Patrick Mahomes and Jalen is the fact that they had strong fathers, and you obviously are a huge part of that. Do you think that that has a big deal in their success and why they're here?
That one's hard to explain. I'll say that, I understand that, we live in a time where everyone, I coach a lot of kids that, we as coaches are their father figures, and we embrace that. And then I deal with a lot of fathers, with their child. And so, they're out there, but it's a deal where, I can't just, specify, or pull anything specific on it. I just know that, I had two kids, well, my first two kids were son, my baby girl, the third one is my daughter. But, my first two kids were sons, and I took them to daycare, and they fell in love with football. And, being a coach, it's easier for them to be around it, for them to pick up stuff. So it was never a deal where, hey, we're going to go do this. You need to work out. You got to do this. You go be a kid. I mean, just go play, have fun. And, if it's meant to be later on, then okay, now you have access to a weight room. You know, you have access to a field to go work out at when you want to, and those kind of things. And so if it's what you want to do, the opportunity's there if that's what you want to do. But the biggest thing is, for me as a father, is just trying to raise you know, raise your son up to be a man, and what their daytime job ends up being, that's part of it. But if you've instilled those family values and, try to instill good character, and for me, it's always a do as I say, not as I've done, you know, and, the kids, they've grown up. I always tell people, in spite of me, I got two great young men and a beautiful daughter. So I got lucky.
No, you need to give yourself a little more credit than that, because I'll tell you what, Jalen's probably the most incredible human being I've ever met in my life. And you've done an amazing job. And I know Patrick Mahomes Sr. has also done a great job with Pat. When you look at this matchup between these two teams, I'm not asking you for a prediction. Obviously, you want Philadelphia to win, but how do you see this game won? Where do you think it'll be won?
Trenches. I think that, of course, Patrick's a phenomenal player. I remember we were at the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Player of the Year Award, and Tyler, after Jalen's freshman year, and it was the year Patrick was coming out, and that's when I got to meet him, and I was talking to, he was with Cliff, Coach Kingsbury at the time, and so we were just talking, and Cliff was just telling me about. He said he has unbelievable arm talent, and so, and I'd never really just watched him, and I hear about Tech, but I just hadn't watched him. And and Cliff had recruited Jalen, so we had a good relationship from when he was at U of H. And so then when he hit, took the NFL by storm, it just brought me back to that conversation. I'm like, oh yeah, he was right. So it's going to be a great game. You know, I think it's going to come down to the trenches, the O-line and D-line, and, we'll see what happens.
I think we need to get a TV career going for you, man. I think you're right on with that. I also look at Philadelphia and I think of that short yardage situation that they go through where they get really low on the line. You talk about the game being won in the trenches. What is your thought about that play? Because it seems like it works 99% of the time. I'm always worried about Jalen getting hurt on that play. Have you ever thought about maybe using that play on the high school level? Because I think it's unstoppable.
I don't have another quarterback that was squatting like 570 in high school. So it's kind of, when that kind of helps. And then you're getting assisted from the back. So it's like a cheat code.
I know. Do you worry about Jalen on those plays?
Nah, I feel sorry for for Jason Kelsey because he's at the bottom of the pile, the center.
So what advice are you going to give Jalen about the big stage and, not being overwhelmed? He's not the kind of kid that will be, but will there be anything that you say to him before the game?
Oh, no. I mean, this is not, it's not a situation where you're going to go give some advice going to the Super Bowl. You made it to the Super Bowl, relax and play the game. They will be prepared. Both teams will show up prepared. And so at the end of it, after the national anthem, it's going to be a kickoff and, you see how a game plays out. Unfortunately, they had a great barn burner in the AFC championship game. Unfortunately, there were injuries in the NFC game, but I mean, injuries are a part of the game. And, it's always there. You never want to see anyone get hurt, and it's unfortunate that San Francisco had some injuries at, the worst time possible. And so, at the end of it, it is what it is. So, now they just got to go out. They're going to prepare, and go play the game, and we're going to see what happens.
Now, you're a real tough guy, and I know you as a tough guy. So when you're going to the game, right? You're going to Arizona.
Yeah.
You're going. Yeah. Okay. So when you go, and let's just say, he wins and he's the MVP. I mean, you're such a proud papa. What's that moment going to be like for you? Are you going to be teary-eyed? I probably would get teary-eyed just being in there before the kickoff and hearing the national anthem and knowing that my son is on the field and everybody's watching.
I can't, I don't know. I have to see what happens when it happens. I cried first game at Alabama against USC when he went in the game. And that was more of a deal where, okay, nobody thought he was going to ever be able to play, didn't think he was good enough. And so, and I knew it was going to happen, because I'd seen it and I'd already talked to coach. And so just to see him out there was kind of like for all the naysayers, coming out of school, he's not going to play quarterback. It's like, no, he's going to play quarterback. That's what he is. And so it's, just him going out and being able to do that. So that was a special moment. But then since then, I've never thought about crying because it's the things that he's gone through. He's prepared. He works hard at it. He's very mature and he's going to work for it. So it's going to be a good deal. So I don't know what happens when you win. We have to figure that out, Lord. I'd like to say, hopefully I'll get to experience that and then we find out what happens.
Well, I'd be remiss not to ask you about your district and defending champion Falcons and what a great season you had last year taking the district. As you go to spring football, what are you looking forward to and how are you feeling about your guys? I
mean, the good part, we got some good numbers back. We have to get and figure out, we have to replace some skilled kids. And so this, spring football is that opportunity for the young kids to step up and show that they're ready to play. And, we'll find out where they are so we can then send them into the summer with a plan to get them back in August and get ready to go.
Coach Hurts, thank you so much for doing this and enjoy the big game in Arizona. And we're rooting for you guys.
Thank you very much for having me.